So we're here with 16 Bars, and I'm sitting next to NF. We're in Berlin. So you just arrived, but you've been to Germany before. Were you able to look at Berlin a little bit, at least, this time?
No, not really. I mean, last night a little bit, but not much. I had, what's this sausage called?
Bockwurst?
Oh, yeah.
Or curry?
It was some kind of bratwurst. It was really good. But yeah, I only had last night to really go around, and then we leave tomorrow, so, but yeah.
That has to be super frustrating. You go all these places, and then you don't really have time to check shit out.
I'm actually not very much of like an explorer kind of person, so it doesn't bother me too much, but every once in a while it does, but yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get into the music straight off. Love the project. Love the videos. But there is something that I wondered about. So let me get into this. Okay. Now, you had said in an interview for How Could You Leave Us, which is definitely a different project, but you said that you couldn't record the song completely when you did it. Like you couldn't finish it, you had to take a break because it was such an emotional song. Did you have any moments like that for this project?
No, that was the most emotional song I'd ever recorded my whole life. I don't know if we took a break in the middle of doing it, but we had to, me and my producer, it's one of my best friends, we had to get out of the studio after a while because it was like 2 days of like very depressing. It was also, I was venting, so it was nice to be able to like express myself, but it was like kind of a dark 2 days. So we definitely we just left and went and saw a movie or something and just hung out and got away from the studio. But for this project, definitely emotional, dark moments, but probably not the same as that. That was just like so emotionally draining, I think, because I actually started talking about some things in a different way and like digging deeper into my mom, passing. So, but this record is like probably the most emotional one on this record would be Hate Myself, just because I wrote it when I was in like my darkest place after after Perception came out and I started touring a lot. I'd never toured that much before, and I think tour
life is hard.
Yeah, just speaking to other artists and stuff too. I just realized it can be like a scary place, I guess, for some artists. Like, just, I don't know. I get really depressed when I'm on the road, so that was a song that I started writing when I was in that place. But, yeah.
But you'd actually intended, from my understanding, that you wanted it to be, and I quote, motivating and encouraging. Do you regret that it's not like that?
No, I don't, because I think I felt like that because I was like, I wanted it to be so different from anything else I'd made, but it just kind of reminded me that I've always made music from where I'm at, like currently, or I've talked about my past and I've talked about other things, but I just wanted to, I realized that it was just like, I'm not going to be able to write from the place that I'm just not feeling right now, so I don't regret it. I think the project is what it was supposed to be, and I'll just keep striving to make better music too. So
from Mansion, Therapy Session, Perception, and now The Search, what would you say was the hardest project for you to work on, for you personally?
I think there'd be different reasons. I mean, different reasons for different projects to be more difficult, I guess. But I would say The Search was probably one of the hardest ones for me because, like I said, coming off Perception, when Perception dropped, I went on the road and I did 4 tours that year. I think I did the first Perception run, then I think I went to Europe, then I did the tour with Logic, and then I did another tour of my own project again. So I'd never experienced not having as much time to write and record and stuff, and then coming into the beginning of the year, it was like I never had like a deadline either for a record. Like I did this one where it was like, hey, we're trying to plan the next tour. The album would have to be out by this time. And so it was just all this pressure of like, oh, I have this amount of time to get the record done. And then I was just freaking out, like, I want to make sure it's good. I'm not just going to put it out so I can go on tour, you know. So I'd say this one probably all around was probably the most difficult.
How did you deal with the pressure? Certain things you do?
Right. It's just like what I try to explain to people is like writing music, at least for me, because I write from an emotional place or when I'm inspired, it's not like, hey, go in the studio for 2 months and finish an album. Like for me, it's like if I don't feel inspired, I can't write, you know. I'll spend hours at my house writing and sometimes I'll get nothing. And so it's not like, hey, you know, I always use it's a funny example. It's like mowing your grass. It's like whether I want to mow my grass or not, I can still go out there and mow my grass, right? With writing music, it just isn't the same. It's like I can write something, but if it's not good enough to me or whatever, then I don't want to put it out. So.
Okay, yeah. That sounds tough for somebody who has sporadic moments of like creativity and inspiration. What do you say? It's writer's block in a sense, or
sometimes I get that, and it's also coming off perception and just like that was my first album where it was just bigger, way bigger than anything I'd ever done. Having Let You Down do what it did, and then just the touring, it was all amazing stuff. But I think it also just sets a bar for yourself, and you're just like, oh, how am I going to live up to that? Is anyone gonna like this album? Is this album that great? Like I second guess myself a lot, and I'm a perfectionist, so it's like that whole struggle. So yeah, the search definitely, back to your question, was probably the hardest all around, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So,
do you think being a perfectionist has hindered you in some ways when it comes to your creative process? Because you do everything.
Actually, I
right?
think this is the weird thing. The tough thing about being a perfectionist is I think there's a line, and I think people are perfectionists. They're never like in the middle, in the healthy stage of like, I want to make things as best I can. It's like me, I'm like way over the line of like, oh, it needs to be this or whatever. So it actually helps me, it drives me, because I'm like, this isn't good enough. I need to work harder. I need to do this. But then, yeah, sometimes it is unhealthy mentally, because if you have the idea that you'll never be good enough or you never make anything good enough, it can drive you to work really hard, but also it can make you like very unhappy. So I think it's a balance that probably a lot of people struggle with, but definitely I do. So.
Is that a reason why you only work with one producer in a very small team, because they can deal with like the standards you set to yourself and like the way you want things to be? Or is it just because it's your best friend?
Well, one thing is I don't really trust people, and yes, I like and I also like to do things my way with like Tommee Profit. He's one of my best friends, and like we've been doing it since the first album. And to me, it's just like I love working with him, and I think the stuff we make is great. And then I have other friends too that come in on my projects and do the drums for a track, and we'll collaborate on a few different things. So I just like keeping my circle of people I work with small, like producing wise, just because I think it, like all my videos, everything, like I use my same guy for all my videos because I like to be involved in directing the videos. So it's like some people don't want to do that. They don't want to do a video with you if you're directing it or helping direct, because I also like to sit in on the editing sessions.
Oh,
and like
God.
yeah, all of that.
You'll sit next to the person while they're editing. Wow.
Yeah. So you know, and
that's hardcore though, I'm not gonna lie, because that shit could take a long time.
I love that. Like, I love doing that process, and that's what helps everything connect, I think, is having just a small team that's willing to, like, let me jump in there and do those things as well. I'm sure it's, like, super annoying for them sometimes as well, but I think that's how it helps everything come together, so.
What would you say is one of your biggest pet peeves when you are actually recording in that process?
My biggest pet peeve recording would be if I'm messing up. I keep messing up when I'm trying to like record a verse I just wrote or something. Okay. And I keep trying to lay it down and I keep messing up. It doesn't happen often, but when I do, I get so annoyed. It's like, yeah, it's annoying.
But what do you need for you to feel comfortable, like when you're in the stew?
I think just who I'm working with.
Okay.
That's why. I
You
guess.
have a home studio? Is that where you made most of this project, or?
No, like I wrote most of it in like a closet.
What?
Like upstairs at my house. And there's a room up there I use too, but like, yeah, I wrote a lot of it up there.
What?
Yeah. And then,
So you just put like a mic, just put like whatever sound dimmers or whatever.
I wrote most of it there.
So you just go in the closet, sit down, and just write.
Yeah, I'll just bring a speaker in there and like write in there. And then there's a room up there I use sometimes too, but I started using the closet. And then I'll go to, I wrote some of it at Tommee's studio. And then we record most all of it there. But I also love working with him because he's amazing at like mixing and mastering. Just a lot of stuff that people don't think about. Because once we record a song, I don't like the song to change very much.
Yeah, and you
like
want
mixing wise. Yeah. So like that's a whole process too that I love working with him on because he just knows me and he knows what I like now. And so, you know, once I find someone that does a great job at what I like, I don't really like to find like new people.
I don't know. This is something, I'm not sure if this is a true story, but you had a car that was overheating and then you had to like change your schedule and stuff to get to places. Was Tommee a part of your life then already?
I mean, I think I was driving that car to his house. He lived in Grand Rapids and I lived in Gladwin, Michigan, which was like 2.5 hours from each other. And yeah, there's like a song where I talk about that some, but I had a car that would overheat. If it was too hot outside, it would overheat. And then if I was in like traffic or something, it would just like start lunging forward. What? Yeah, and if you didn't go when it was lunging forward, if you kept the brake on, it would just die in traffic. And then you'd have to wait like 10 minutes for it to like restart. Yeah, it was terrible. So he probably remembers that car. He had a car for himself as well. That was a piece of work. Not as bad.